Hello, hello, imaginary villain here, and it's time to get down to another PIXI Particles tutorial. Today we're going to talk about the movable particle. This particle is used mostly for if you actually want something to move around. The previous one with the scenery that was done in the other tutorial was mostly for things you just kind of want to leave in place because it didn't update very often. This one uses more resources, about 5 times the resources. Still not that much, but what it does do is it allows it to update with its movement so that you'll actually be able to, say, put it on a car like we're going to do today and have the car move around. So to start off with, if you don't know how to do this, go to the description of this video, download the movable particle, and then copy it into your games folder. Under data, if you don't have a particles folder, go ahead and make it, and then copy it in. I've already got it here, but you probably won't. Now, go to particle emitter, config name, and then add it to the bottom of the list. Make certain to spell it exactly the same as it was as the file is spelled. Previously, we went through 4 different commands, and I'm not going to lie to you, these are going to be pretty much the same commands we use this time. The biggest change is how we use the commands. We previously went through the gameMap.createPEmitter, which does exactly what it sounds like it does. It creates an actual emitter. In this case, it did a mansion scene, and we used the scenery particle. And then we ran through gameMap.setPEmitterZ, which changes the Z. So for a quick refresher, there is no cap or minimum on that, so we did negative a whole lot. Negative 1,000,000. You can do a positive 1,000,000, doesn't really matter. And we did gameMap.setPEmitterPosition, which pretty much lets you change the X and the Y of it based on the relation to the event. And then we went through gameMap.deletePEmitter, which does exactly what it sounds like. So we're going to use those again. The first thing we're going to do with the movable particle is we're going to make another event. You can make this event anywhere you want. This is just so the player has something they can click on. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and make ourselves a conditional here. We'll pick the OK button. And this can, this won't need an else. This is fine. And then we're going to make a little switch that it can trip here. Not by clicking that, but by clicking this. We're going to do cell switch there. Cell switch A is off. Don't forget to have an else here. We're going to do a script command. gameMap.createPEmitter. And we're going to use this event ID. You can use the number of the event if you want, or just any name you want for this. You just have to remember the name you use. I usually use this event ID so I can just simply copy and paste. Put a bracket, and then the file you want to display. We're going to display something above the player this time, which we didn't do in the previous video. In this case, I have pre-made a Frogger image. So we're going to use that. Make certain to put it as a string. I use tildes. You could use quotations if you like. Put it in the bracket, comma, and then in this case, as another string here, we're going to put movable, comma, and then for the target of it, previously we used this event ID. But now we're going to use -1, which means it will target the player. And then put a parenthesis. All right. That's the first one you're going to need. What that'll do is simply just create the emitter itself, the Frogger emitter in this case. Now we're going to make another one, gameMap. I can spell, I swear. .set PEmitterZ. In this case, I'm just going to use this event ID. It's almost always what I use. And we'll set it for, what the hey, 15. Why not? Seems like a good number, right? Don't forget to put a parenthesis. Hit OK on that. And then I'm going to use this other one here to position it. I've already positioned this in advance, so I know how tall it needs to be for my particular character. And, well, Poppet is a very tall character. She is just absolutely massive at around 400 pixels tall. She's very big. She's a big girl. I'm not gonna move the X at all, but I'm gonna do negative 400, and this on the Y here, and this will just basically move it upwards by 400. So the X here will move it left or right, and then the Y here moves it up or down, with negative being up. All right, then I'm going to turn self switch A on. And the reasoning for this is simply that once they do this, it will cause the else to trigger on the next one because A is now on. The next one here, I'm just going to put another script command, and it's going to be gameMap.deletePEmitter. This event ID. And then we're going to turn self switch A off. So this way it'll, after self switch A is on, it will then run this one, which then will turn it back off, and then causing the next time you hit OK to turn it back on, and so on down the line. It'll just alternate. And then I'll put a wait in here of like 5 or something, just so it doesn't run as often. I mean, it should run often enough. Don't forget to put parallel on this one. Now, if I run the event, well, run the game, I should say. And look, now text appears above her. How great, isn't that wonderful? Again, turn on, off, woohoo, on, off, yay. So you see you can show a picture of both their heads. In this case, I just did text, but let's say I wanted to do something different. Like, how about a star? I have a giant star image, it'll work perfect. Now look, there's a giant star above her head. Clever people might realize they could make a text box and then make images that are in fact text, and you could, in theory, do messages that way, people wandering by if you wanted. But I'm not going to do that today. I will put the Frogger back on, though, for reasons. All right, and now we're going to do something a little more interesting. One of the things you might have noticed is that we can set the Z at anything we want. So it can be in front of the player or behind the player. But what if the player wants to run circles around that? Well, that's where this comes in. So we're going to make a new event here. And this is going to be our toy car. Why not? We like toy car, right? So we're going to get a little tricky with this one. And you're going to learn some things that aren't even necessarily particle related here, but that's okay. Because at the end of the day, there's really only 4 particle commands, and mostly it's about all the cool things you can do with them versus learning how to use the 4 particle commands. That could have been done in the first part of one video, which it was done. So in this case, we're going to do gameMap, or gamePlayer.y is less than gameMap.event, this event ID, .y. And we're going to want an else for this one. What this is going to do is if the player happens to be above the event, it will trigger, this, or if it's below the event, it will trigger the other. This is a lot of the secret of how you can make something go around something, because we're going to make that Y and pretty much change the Z all over the place. It's going to be great. So now the next thing we're going to need is another conditional branch, and we're going to do self switch B. Self switch B is off. We could have started with self switch A. We're just doing self switch B here because we can. Why not? And we'll make an else on this one. So first thing we'll do is turn self switch A off. And then we're going to make a script command here. It's going to be a gameMap.createPEmitter. I highly recommend just copy and pasting this stuff. I'm only typing it out for the tutorial. Otherwise, I would just be copy and pasting this like crazy. Anyone who sees my stream will, in fact, attest to that. Pretty much just like the last one, a string inside of brackets for what you want it to be. In this case, the movable particle. And we're going to strap it to this event ID, just so it's on top of the event, and put a parenthesis at the end. Normally, I would actually probably put all the script commands in the same thing, but for purposes of the tutorial, I will not. gameMap.setPEmitterZ. And we're going to make it this event ID. And then we're going to set it at, why not 14? We like 14. Sure. All right. Let's make it a script command. This is because I've already tested where it's going to put my stuff based in relation to the size of my images. You'll probably have to mess with this a bit and see how it works for your own personal assets. We're going to do a set position. Still 0 for X. I'm not too worried about where it's at width-wise. I should say horizontally. But it needs to be 200 higher on the Y. These are in pixels, not grid spaces. And then I'll put a 5-second wait on it, I guess. Why not? Sure. And then we're going to get tricky here. And this is why you should always, use tildes to your strings, because it's a different type of string. It's a better type of string. So we're going to do gameMap.deletePEmitter. And this is where we get a little tricky. We're going to use the tilde, do a $, a bracket, and then this event ID, closing bracket, or whatever that bracket's called. The one that's more of a squiggle with a thing sticking out on the end. I'm blanking on the name at the moment. I should probably look it up later. Anyway, we're going to put a number after that. We'll put 2 after that. And then close it with a tilde. What this does is it creates a string with a variable in it, and the variable is just going to be this event ID. And you can use this anywhere you want. This is just basic JavaScript, so very useful. And then we're going to turn cell switch B on. That's all. It'll be good. It'll make sense in a moment. Now, let's see. I didn't actually, no, I did anything else on that, didn't I? I don't actually need anything else on this one. Confused myself a little bit there. All right, so else, we're going to do if cell switch A is off. And largely what we're going to do is we're just going to take the rest of these things and we're just going to copy paste a bunch of this stuff. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Except for we're going to change a couple of these a bit. In this case, we're going to turn cell switch B off on this one and cell switch A on down here. And then we're going to make a couple quick changes here. We're going to go through all these ones here where I named the event the other way, and we're going to turn it into this name right here. So save yourself the trouble. When doing this, just copy and paste that. Trust me, it'll be worth it. Do remember to make it a string though, like I almost forgot to do there. Technically, you can name any number of things this way while still strapping it to the same event, making it really easy to keep track of, which is often what I do. I'll just put a number afterwards. The 2 will become a 3, 4, 5, all the way down the line. And then we're just going to make this one this event ID, because what we want this to do is simply delete this one, but we want to add the other one first so it goes over the top of it. The other thing we're going to want to do is we're going to set this to 0 for the CV1 on this one. Don't forget to run it. And that should be good enough. All right. Now, Poppet can run around it. She can also run through it because it's not solid, but as you can see, now Poppet is able to simply run around the thing. That's cool and all. As you can see, it's totally passed right through it, but she will switch to whichever side is necessary. So she's sitting at 5 currently. Normally you default to 2 for RM's normal assets, so keep that in mind. But we can get even trickier with this because Why not? And this is where the Frogger game portion comes in. Because let's be real here. We might as well get a little crazy here. But once again, do a conditional branch, and in this case we'll do self switch. Why not D this time? Just because I can. You could use C if you wanted. It wouldn't really matter. And then we'll have an else for this too. Right. And then we're going to do a script here if gameMap event this event ID dot x is greater than or equal to 30. I'm putting those in there. They're not that necessary here. And we're going to make some script commands here. They're going to look a lot like the usual suspects of gameMap.createPEmitter. In this case, I'm going to do beep beep, a previously made thing, because I can. And the actual image I have made for it is in fact also called beep beep. Do remember to make these a string. We're going to use the movable particle. Once again, you can see where copy and paste becomes incredibly handy. It's event ID because we usually want to strap them to the events, unless we're specifically strapping them to the player. Cool. Everything as normal. We're going to do gameMap.setPEmitterZ. In this case, beep beep. The reason I didn't actually name the thing as this event ID is that's already being used, so if I were to use this event ID, it would overwrite it. I could use the trick I was doing with tildes earlier, but just to showcase that you could do something else, we'll do this. We'll put it at 16, because why not? And we'll put a parenthesis to close that up. And then, once again, we're going to set the p-emitter position. You can, of course, adjust this as you see fits for whatever you decide to use this for. I'm pretty much just showing people how to do crazy things with this so you can use your own assets and come up with your own creative things. In fact, be sure to tell me down in the comments if you make something really cool because of this, because I'd love to hear it. And then we're going to turn self switch D on. Once again, just creating a switch that just trips itself, so this way it causes the other one to happen. And then we're going to do another one here. This is only going to happen when it actually gets far enough to the side here. Very important. And then we're going to have down here that it's just going to keep moving over to the right. The reason this is, we'll put skip if cannot move, but it shouldn't have a problem, just in case though. But the reason we're doing this outside of this is that we want this to trigger and force it to change what's happening otherwise. Otherwise, we want it to move right as much as possible. And then on the else for that self switch D, let's do another conditional. In this case, we're going to set up where it's going to go to the other direction. So we're doing gameMap.event this event ID .x is less than or equal to, in this case, 20. And then we're going to do another script command, gameMap.deletePEmitter beep beep. And turn self switch D off. Not C, D. And then we're going to set a move route outside of that so that this event will move left. And I'll have it skip if it can't move for some reason, which just means, like, you know, if you had a collision for it and the player was in the way, it wouldn't freeze your game. All right. And that should be all we need. See, we're still running around it, doing our Frogger thing. It beeps. And it goes back. And once again beeps. Woohoo. Hopefully that gives you some idea of fun things you can do with this. The next tutorial will probably talk about how to make the particles outright, or I'll come up with specific examples on how to do water or something. We'll see. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you found this interesting or helpful, and down in the comments, let me know what you did with it. This is Imaginary Villain signing out. Thanks for watching this tutorial.